When working with a 3-yard quilt pattern, do you sometimes find yourself questioning a line that's in the pattern? Or do you have a question about quilting that you've always wanted to know? Well, we've gathered a bunch of them and we're going to give you the answers now. Keep watching. Hi, it's Donna Robertson with Fabric Cafe, and today I'm here with
Hannah Johnson.
And Hannah has been accumulating questions from people who love 3-yard quilts, but they have these little questions and answers, and people who have not used them yet, but they'll get a book or a pattern and they have a question. So she has a handy dandy clipboard here, and that clipboard has lots of questions on it, so we're going to just get started and share some answers with you today. So what have we got first here, Hannah?
Well, the first one came from a Facebook post we did a couple weeks ago. Thank you for everyone who commented on that. Carla Sell wants to know, should I press seams open or to one side?
That one is one of those questions that most people say preference, with some little bit of little cautionary things in there. So let's talk about pressing just a little. When I first started making quilts, I had been a garment sewer. I started sewing my own clothes when I was about 10 years old. And by the time I was married and had kids, I was making suits for my husband. I was making all of my clothes, all of my kids' clothes. Sorry, children, but no. No, actually I was. I did a lot of garment sewing. And so I was... I'm not going to tell you how old I was when, but 20 years ago when we started Fabric Cafe, I was just really getting into quilting, and I did what most garment sewers do, and they started making quilts, and I pressed my seams open. Well, one of the things that we learned was that when you press your seams open, your quilt will lay a lot flatter if they're pressed open. However, I started hearing about press to the dark side, so I had to kind of think it through, press to the dark side, and I started questioning and looking for answers. And one of the reasons that people say don't press open is because the threads would be the only thing holding the two pieces of fabric together, and that it would make it weaker. However, if you're using a long arm quilter, you're going to be quilting over that, and it doesn't have quite the same pressure on that seam. However, remember, long arm quilters are going to be stretching your quilt onto the rack. So there's a lot of this or that, this or that. So after I had quilted for a while, I did begin liking pressing to the dark side better, because it's actually a little bit easier to press your seams when you do that. The one thing I want to tell you is make sure you set your seams by sew your seam, leave it flat. And aren't we going to do a section on pressing seams later? Mm-hmm. Okay, so I'll go into detail at that time. But you sew your two seams together. You want to set your seams by pressing before you press them to one side. Then you will press them. It makes a big difference if you do that. So I started out pressing my seams open, and then through the years, I have gotten to where I do press to the dark side. But if you'll set the seams first, it'll still be a lot flatter. Mm-hmm. Okay?
Fran Ronsky wants to know, and I apologize if I say anybody's names wrong. Don't hate me, but you can put in comments below how I say your name, and I'll do it right next time. Do you have suggestions for the back when the top is wider than 42 inches? She said that it's hard to find wide fabric that matches your nice yardage on the top.
Good point. First of all, if you're going to be sending your quilt out to a long arm quilter, you really do need to give them an extra 4 inches on each side. Sometimes our long arm quilter will say, okay, you can give me 3 inches on each side. But she prefers the 4 inches. And we want it to be easier for the long arm quilter to be able to mount that quilt and do a better job for us. So granted, you can't find fabrics normally that are wide enough without piecing. So we've come up with a thing on our website called freegoodies.com. And on freegoodies.com, you are going to have multiple items that you can download at no charge. One of the things that we have is let me find my right one here. Oh, I probably should have taken the top one. Preparing backing for a 3-yard quilt. This is showing you how to take 3 1-yard cuts of not 3 1-yard cuts. How to take 3 yards of fabric and cut it and seam it so that you can put it on your quilt. And it will give you basically a 54-inch wide backing whenever you get through. So you have plenty of room because most of our quilts are about 45 by 60. So this will give you enough room so that you can get that on there by using the 45-inch wide fabrics, just your regular fabrics. We do have a section on our website where you can actually ask our staff to pick your backing for your quilt, and so you can add backing to your quilt. Now we do have the freebie for the backing for a lap size. We also have backing for a twin size, how you do that. We have the backing for a king-queen size. We also have a backing sheet for how to use directional fabric so that it will all come out the same way, because on the others you need a non-directional fabric so that you don't have half of it going one way and half another way, or have it go sideways. We also have one called How to Use 108 Fabric for Backing. So all of these are free sheets on our website. 108 backing is designed for a king-size quilt, which when you get 3 yards of 108 fabric, then you have a big square that's 108 by 108. If you buy 2 yards of 108 fabric, then you can cut it in half, and it will be enough to do 2 of our lap quilts. So keep that in mind whenever you're purchasing. We do have a couple of 108 backings on our website. This is one of them. So if you bought this, it is in our open stock. It would go nicely with this particular kit. You can look and see how pretty that looks with it. So this is one of the kits that are on our website. This one is 802111 Paisley Parade. It's Stepping Stones is the name of the pattern we recommend, and it's 43.5 by 58.5. And that pattern can be found in the Pretty Darn Quick book. So what's our next question?
Our next question. Have you tried using a twin size sheet? Norman Johnson wants to know that one.
Well, I have never used a twin bed sheet for my backings. And whenever I saw that question, I went and did a little searching, and we found a blog site that we want to share with you. And what is that blog site? I've already forgotten. Poodles or something?
Patchwork and Poodles.
Patchwork and Poodles. She has an exhaustive explanation of using sheets and different kinds of fabrics for backing. So I say kudos to her for coming up with that. One of the cautionary things that I remember from her blog was that a twin sheet is more tightly woven than your quilt fabrics. So it's a little bit different when you're actually quilting. So you might want to talk to your long arm quilter about whether that's a good or bad idea, because if it's a tighter weave, your needle doesn't travel through in the same way. And also keep in mind that it will shrink differently than your quilting cottons, because it's a looser, your quilting cottons are a looser thread. It's not that real tight sheet fabric kind of thing. So you might check out some of her pointers. I thought they were really good, and I give her kudos for doing that very exhaustive study on it.
Well, that's a good segue into should you pre-wash your fabric? We get that question a lot.
Okay. In my opinion, pre-washing is somewhat subjective. Do you like to pre-wash? I do not pre-wash my fabrics. When I wash a quilt for the very first time, I like to use Synthropol or Retain. Those are two very good products for you to put a little, you just put a little bit in your wash water, and what it does is it helps to wash away your free particles in your fabric, the free dye particles. When we went, I visited a manufacturer one time, and they were explaining to us that black and red are the hardest colors to get a real saturation. It's like in order to get a really deep red or a really deep black, you just almost oversaturate the fabric. And some of those dye particles are still floating around out there when you wash. So use those two products, Retain or Synthropol. And the other thing I do is I set my timer so that as soon as my washing machine is through washing, I go take it out so it's not laying up against each other. Because sometimes the fabric just laying up against each other will start to bleed. So don't leave it sitting in a washer or a dry or wet on top of each other. The fact that you do have those free dye particles in those darker fabrics, you might want to just take a little piece and put it in soapy water and then press it with paper towels to see if it looks like it's going to fade really bad. So those are some things that I would suggest. Now, if you're going to pre-wash your fabric, you will need to overcast your raw edges before you pre-wash, and you will need to resize your fabric. Use something like Mary Ellen's Best Press. I believe we have that on our website, and it will put a little sizing back in your fabric. I like working with brand new fabric that still has the manufacturer sizing in it, and I will have to say it's been years, probably maybe 20 years ago, I did make a quilt, and I ruined it by washing it because I didn't double check. And I was shocked whenever it bled. But other than that, after 20 years, I haven't ruined another quilt. So those are my precautionary things there. So it is subjective. It's up to you whether you'd rather pre-wash and put your sizing back in, overcast your edges, or if you would rather live a little dangerously and do it the way I do it.
What does WOF stand for?
Good question. Every one of my patterns, I do a lot of strip piecing, which I think we're going to talk about too. But at the beginning of every pattern, let's put this over here, I have some notes. And those notes, I tell you that WOF means width of fabric. Width of fabric is important but it's such a long string of words that we abbreviate it, and it has become a known abbreviation in the quilting arena. If you're new, I'd like to explain that to you. So whenever you buy fabric, it's going to be come off the bolt just like this, and you're going to have selvages over here. So you've got a selvage on each side. The selvage is very, very tightly woven fabric. That's where they mount it on their, when they're making the actual grayage that is then printed on. With your selvages, with it folded in half and your selvage on one side, then this would be the width of the fabric. This is the length of the fabric. So you'll want to keep that in mind when you're cutting, and I tell you to cut, let's pull this back over here. If I tell you to cut something 9.5 by WOF, that means that you're going to cut 9.5 this way by width of fabric. So that's what that symbol means.
Can you use a jelly roll or a layer cake to make our patterns?
I don't recommend it because I do a lot of strip piecing. And strip piecing is done in such a way that you need the width of the fabric. Otherwise, if you use like a layer cake, I believe those are 10-inch. I don't have very many quilts that are going to say cut a 10-inch square. You would have to trim it down to an 8-inch or something like that. So I don't recommend it because my instructions are written for yardage. And it'll make it a lot simpler for you to actually purchase your fabric and cut the patterns out.
Well, on the topic of strip piecing, our next question is, What is a partial strip assembly?
We do get that from time to time. Now, which book are we using here? Over here? Okay. So I do, whenever I'm doing my partial strip assemblies and my strip assembly, and we have gotten that question before. So if you come right over here to my cutting instructions for this particular quilt, now that I'm reading upside down, partial strip assembly A. So it tells you to cut your 10.5 by width of fabric, and from that strip you're going to cut one 10.5 by 21 inch partial strip assembly. And then it'll tell you from the remainder of this strip, it'll give you other instructions if we need to use it that way. So let's first of all talk about what is a strip assembly. And let's show this, John. So this is a strip assembly right up here where you're sewing long strips together. And that is what we've done here. So here is our strip assembly for this particular quilt that we're talking about. So it has this big 10-inch, 10.5-inch piece with these two pieces sewn on either side. So once again, this is what this is going to look like. And then we're going to tell you to cut it into units. So you're going to cut this into 10.5 by 15.5 inch units. That is the foundation portion or the unit of your block that you're going to build. So that is a strip assembly. Now it says make one full and one partial strip assembly. And so we've already done the width of fabric, and the way you know I've done width of fabric is I have my selvages on there. So here are your selvages here and here. And then when it says do a partial strip assembly, once again, our cutting instructions said to cut this 10.5 by 21 inch for a partial strip assembly. So here we have a whole strip assembly, and here we have the partial strip assembly. So it's just shorter. And the reason we do that is because I don't need all of this fabric down here. That if you'd made another full strip assembly, you would not need that. It would just be waste. So what I tend to do to make your quilts larger with 3-yard quilts is I try to economize the way I cut it. So I cut this out, and then I use the remainder of these 3 pieces to cut another aspect of the quilt. So you'll only cut 2 of those other pieces out of this, where, let's see how many it says. Okay, we're going to cut a total of 6. So we cut 4 out of the whole strip assembly, and then we cut 2 out of this, and we will have our 6 foundation blocks. Okay? Now, if you're drooling over this cute pirate fabric, let me show you this fabric because it is cute. So here's the fabric. So you have your cute pirates, and then you have your secondary fabric. So you put your focus fabric in one square. Your secondary fabric will be your number 2, and then this is your number 3. And as you saw in that strip piecing, we were strip piecing these to make the foundation block. Okay, this one is 8020800. I'm Edie. Tic-Tac is your pattern. Easy Peasy is your book. And that was the book I was just showing you the instructions from. Okay?
What is a border extension?
Oh, that's another good one. Is that in this book?
It is in that one.
See, Hannah always gets so that I can find things easier. Okay. So here, remember we were doing the partial strip assembly? Then we can actually use your, okay, let's go here. So if you don't need a whole strip for the border, but you need a little bit more than what we can cut with whole strips, I do the same thing. So it's like a partial assembly strip. This is a border extension, and that just simply means we're going to make your border strips, and then we need a little bit more, so we call it a border extension. And those will be sewn together so that you will have enough fabric to go around your border. So it's just a border extension, simply means I took it out of a smaller piece, not the whole width of the fabric.
Well, the next question, and we do get this question frequently too, is from Althea Woods. She wants to know, can you change the fabric combination of the fabric in the 3-yard kits?
This is one of my favorite things because sometimes I get surprises, and I kind of did on this one. So we have this cute fabric, and what we're going to do is we're going to show you how to switch positions in your quilt. So Hannah's going to put a quilt up here. This is one that we have called Park Place, and it has these cute little fish. We do not have this fabric. Don't get real excited, but we do have some other really cute fabric, and let's look at it. And then I'm going to show you how you can change the positions and how it changes the look. Does anybody know anything about Baby Shark? I kept hearing about Baby Shark, and when this fabric came out, I got so excited. So Baby Shark is your focus fabric here, and it would go in your number 1 position. You have 2 left over. You pick your light for number 2 and your dark for number 3. So let's do that, and then we're going to change positions and show you a different way to put your fabrics together. So putting it in number 1, remember we talked about creating your units. We created this unit for the Baby Sharks. And then we have strips that there they are. They went underneath something. Then we're going to sew strips on the side like so, and on the side like so. So you're starting to see how the Baby Shark are going to go right in here the same way that the fish did. Now, if you then take your making these, you're going to make units like this, and you have your fish and your stars, and then you're going to rotate this, and I want to get the right one here. You rotate one of those like this, and then we're going to crop this. So did you see that? This is the same. You're going to rotate it like so and sew those together. And then we're going to crop this out so you can see how the Baby Shark look in this. Now, sometimes when you get a directional fabric, and I do this strip piecing, I tell you to just turn one of these, not taking into consideration that it is a directional fabric. But I thought it would be fun to show you that you can sew your strip sets together in 2 ways so that you can actually make it come out the correct way. So make half of your strip sets with your Baby Shark at the top like this, and the other strip set with your Baby Sharks going the same way. So half of your strip sets would be made this way, half of the strip sets would be made that way, and then when you put these in here, they will be going all the same direction. So that's what your little quilt would look like. Okay, now we've shown you these. I'm going to move these over here, and if you would, Hannah, would you set this one up over here?
Oh, sure.
So that I can put the other one on. Okay, once again, this is your fabric number 1, fabric 2, and fabric 3. Now we want to switch this around, and I think it would be really cute to put your shark in the border. So the shark will be outlining this quilt. So if I wanted that to happen, this was the number 2 fabric. So I'm going to move Baby Shark to the number 2 position. Okay? And then I thought it would look really cute in the number 1 position to use the blue. So that means that I have to take the blue and put it in the number 1 position. the shark in the number 2 position, and the peach color in the number 3 position. So I just moved those 3 around so that instead of being 1, 2, 3, it's now 1, 2, 3. There's the same amount of fabric in every piece of fabric. So you can cut any position out of any fabric and put it in a different place as long as you cut everything that I say to cut out of the one position. Now let's look at this made up and what a difference it's going to make for you. Now, instead of the baby shark being in the middle, it's going to be the outline for the border. So there's your little shark coming in there. And then over here, we are going to put the stars in the number 1 position. This would be your number 3 position, like so. Now, let's crop that so you can see how this looks and what a difference it makes to have it done this way. And then I want to take it one step further. I made the borders so you could see it with the borders and put the shark out here. So now you'll be able to see how this crops out here. And so we just moved those around by putting the stars in 1, the sharks in 2, and the coral color in 3. So you get a totally different look whenever you move it around like that. So yes, you can move any position. You can move the fabric from any one position to another as long as you cut everything that I say out of that one position. All right. And if you're interested in baby shark, here is the kit information. 8021139 baby shark. Park Place is your pattern. It's only available in Fast and Fun. So we recommend Sweet Times for the name of the pattern, for the alternate pattern that you can take as an individual free pattern. Okay?
All right. Next question.
Mm-hmm.
Where is my order? How do I track my order?
That's a good question. And this past year, that has been quite an ordeal for a lot of us, because between COVID-19 and then here in Texas, when we just kind of like had the winter storm from somewhere, it was an awful period of time when we were all stuck in our homes. You could not drive out here. You just couldn't, because we got ice and then we got snow and then we got more ice. Mm-hmm. So everything was pretty messed up. We were closed a week, but we are almost caught up, thankfully. But where's my order and how do I track it? Now, whenever you place an order with Fabric Cafe, then we will send you an acknowledgement email. If you don't get it, you might double check your email, because sometimes we get bounces where people's emails are not quite right, so they're not getting their emails. But when we ship your product, we are going to send you a confirmation that it's been shipped. If it ships priority mail, the email will have a confirmation number and a tracking number. And you can track your package if you shipped priority mail. If you ship first class, then you will not have a tracking number, because first class they do not give you tracking numbers. They don't do that. They charge extra in the priority mail so that you can track your orders. Was there another part to that question?
Yes. And you said with people who purchase $100 or more don't need to
Oh, yes.
priority.
If you're ordering over $100 with Fabric Cafe, then you get free shipping and it will automatically go priority. Mm-hmm. So if you're over $100, you don't have to do anything. It's automatic. If you're ordering under $100, usually if you're ordering like a pattern book by itself or a few little patterns, those will go first class. If you want it in a hurry when it's under $100, then you should click on priority mail in order to have it tracked and for it to go a little faster. So priority mail is a little bit faster. But if you order over $100, do not pick priority because then it'll put shipping on there. But if you just order $100 and send it, then it won't put shipping on there and you'll get it free. Mm-hmm. Okay?
Our very last question. How do I download a pattern?
That's a good one too. Okay, there's two ways that you can purchase downloadable patterns and books. The one way would be to go to fabriccafe.com and go to the downloadable button and you can order the patterns. You will get a confirmation number that will tell you to go to your account, and then in your account, you have to set up an account. And we send it to your account, and then you can go in and download that pattern as soon as we close the order. Now, the orders are usually closed in the mornings during the week. Sometimes it takes a little longer on the weekend. So it's not instantaneous when you're ordering a downloadable because a human being on our end of the world has to do something to make it available to you. But then from that point on, it's always stored in your account, and you can go back and get it whenever you want. So you will get an email with a link to your account. Another way that you can do downloadable patterns, which really is a little bit easier for those, especially those overseas, international orders, go to etsy.com/shops/Fabric Cafe and order downloadables from Etsy.com. They have a much more sophisticated site that's developed just for downloadable patterns like that. And when you order from them, then you will be able to automatically download your pattern or your book. You do not have to wait on a human being to click a button in order for you to get it. Okay.
If you have any more comments, put them down in the, or any more questions, put them in the comments below. Maybe we'll do another segment. Let us know what you thought.
That's a great idea. And remember to shop at fabriccafe.com. We have great 3-yard quilts, and we have lots of our 3-yard quilt books. Every pattern is written for 3 1-yard cuts of fabric. And the books are only $15.99. If you want to do a little stash busting, then you can do that as well. Be sure to subscribe and then click the bell so that you'll get notification each time we release a new video. And our video schedule is Tuesday and Thursday at 4 o'clock Central Time. And if you have a quilty friend that likes to quilt, be sure to let them know about fabriccafe.com and about our tutorials. And send us some more questions. This was fun. We had a lot of fun getting ready for it, and we had a lot of fun sharing with you. Have a great day. It's Donna Robertson.